Hey everybody, it's Dave with DII. I'm all by myself today here doing this live show. Daniel's on vacation, so Daniel, if you're out there watching, I wish you well. I think Daniel's down in Mexico near Cancun, so I'm sure he's enjoying himself down there in the tropical weather. All right, I'm Dave. I'm the owner of Dave's Island Instruments. Today I'm going to be talking about the handpan and how to play and all sorts of little things about it. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments section. I've got my iPhone over here and can kind of watch the comments a little bit as we go along. Already I see greetings from San Diego from DVD, so thank you so much for being here, DVD. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. I'll do my best to throw my glasses on and read them over here. And all right, so as I go along, I'm just going to be talking about some of the basics. If you have any questions, I'm also going to be talking about some different kind of handpans today and how to approach playing them. In front of me I have an ohm drum, and this is a patented design that myself and Graham Doe created. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this and how it works. So first of all, I'm just going to play a little bit of this ohm drum. On the bottom of the ohm drum, it has tongues. So you see these little tongues like a tongue drum. So it's not a traditional handpan, but it sounds like this. It's a very dreamy sound. I really like the ohm drum. It really creates this wonderful meditative sound. You can play it with either your fingers, or you can even play it with some mallets. We've got these little mallets here that you can play it with. Produces a slightly different sound. And then as you can see here, as I flip the instrument over, on the other side, it's a handpan, a traditional sunset scale handpan. Some people know the sunset scale as the Celtic minor scale. So with the ohm drum, what you can kind of hear is you can kind of hear how the notes on the top interact with the notes on the bottom. So it has like a little bit of an interesting sustain that's different than any other kind of handpan out there. It's very unique. And then you can flip it over and play the tongues. So that's a little sample of the ohm drum. So the ohm drum is very unique. There's nobody else really in the world making the ohm drum except for myself and Graham. And Graham is at happydrum.com, so check him out one of these days. So we're the only ones. We've got this patented design, and so if you're interested in getting an ohm drum or interested in testing one or looking further into them, give us a call. You can or contact us with our website. You go to our website, davesislandinstruments.com is where we can be found. You can also send us an email, info@davesislandinstruments.com. All right. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. I think a little subscribe button is over here. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you go to our website, davesislandinstruments.com, go to the very bottom and join our newsletter. That way you get updates of when we have these free classes online just like this. All right, so I'm getting back to the handpan. So I just showed you the ohm drum and some of the different characteristics it has, the attributes that it has. And I want to just show you like basics of a regular handpan. So the regular handpan is basically the top of this ohm drum. And it has a note in the middle. It's called the ding note. And then it has the notes around the sides here. These are called tone fields. I sometimes just call them notes. Sometimes I call them tone field notes. These little divots here in the middle of the notes, those are called dimples. And those dimples are there to kind of control the sound a little bit. So it keeps them from making it too loud or too harsh of a sound. And so it has a nice mellow sound. I'm going to get to a couple of these others really quick, but first of all, I'm just going to show you a couple of basics about how to play it. Let's see if anybody has any questions. No questions yet. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the questions and comments field, and I'll do my best to come over here and look at them and answer you live on this broadcast here. All right, so if you want to just get started in a very easy way with a handpan, you just want to get that touch and the feel of how to play the instrument. So one of the notes that I like to start people out on is just the ding note right in the center. And I typically use my index finger to play. Some people use their thumbs. Some people use other fingers. I don't suggest using a whole hand, even though it's called a handpan. It's usually too much of a heavy sound, and you get a lot of a slapping sound out of the instrument when you use your whole hand. So I usually suggest the index finger, and I just usually have people play the ding note 4 times on each hand and try to come down on the note in a relaxed way, strike the note, and immediately have the finger come off of the note. Like that. And I usually have them do 4 on each hand. 2, 3, 4, just back and forth until they get comfortable with that feel and that sound. So frequently people have trouble getting the sound, and the reason are typically a few reasons. And one of them is they keep the finger on the note just for a little too long. And you can see I'm touching that note right now, and it's inhibiting the note from resonating. So you want to make sure that you touch that note and then come off of it to get a nice warm sound. So there are times when you could want to strike the note and mute it. Like you could have open, open, mute, mute, open, open, mute, mute, open, open, mute, mute, that kind of thing. But in general, just for beginners, you want to get that nice, relaxed bounce right off of that note. Just your fingers just going to bounce right off. Now another way of doing this is also playing, extending this exercise to the notes on the side. So to the tone field here and the tone field on the left. So the right and left. You can just, it doesn't really matter, you can play any of them, but just taking the same exercise and trying to get the sound out of these notes. Alright, so something like that. Let's see. Hello from San Francisco. Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't really quite understand the name. What is it? Dimliafal? Anyways, thanks for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them at me. It'd be fun for me to answer some questions online live today. All right, so I'm just talking about how to get started with playing the notes themselves. So a lot of people struggle with this. I was talking about sometimes they touch it for too long and they get like this ticky-tacky sound out of it. And then it also mutes the note, which makes it not resonate. So you want to make sure that the note is vibrating and resonating. So that's why you want to kind of slap the note and come off of it pretty much immediately. And then another thing is some people say, well, where do you hit the note? And so I usually say just aim for the middle of that dimple. You don't have to be completely precise with it every single time, but that's just generally you're going to get a pretty good tone out of the note if you hit pretty much in the middle of the notes there. So those are a few exercises to get you started. Oh, another thing is I sometimes see people curling their finger like this. So they kind of pull at the note rather than let their hand fall down on the note. So this can be a little bit confusing. Some people actually like to play with this kind of motion. It kind of produces with the very tip of your finger, if you have short fingernails, it produces kind of like a nice warm tone out of the notes. And it kind of reduces the slap. So when you play the way I was showing you earlier, it has a little bit of a slap sound there. So if you want to reduce that slap sound, you can kind of curve your finger. You kind of poke at it and just hit it and come off of it really quickly. However, there's a difference. So that's one thing. But another thing is pulling at the note. So what you don't want to do is pull at the note, because pulling at the note is going to mute it just for a second, like that. So try not to pull. What you want to do is just strike the note and come right off of it. It's kind of like a bouncing feel. So I like using that technique. Excuse me. I like using that technique kind of when I want to mellow it out. Whenever I'm playing and I want to have like a nice soft sound. It's a very nice mellow way of playing the instrument. And then if I want to create more intensity out of my playing, then I'll use the flat part. So I'm going to show you the flat part here. Alright, so now I'm going to use the tips and then move to the flat part of my hand just to show you the difference. So here's the tips of my fingers. Now the flat. Tips. Now the flat. So there, just a very simple technique change of how you play the notes can create a different sound out of the music that you're playing. So I encourage you guys all out there, whoever's learning and practicing, to try different techniques with their hands. So even though I'm right now showing you the basics, ultimately what you want to do is try to figure out, like with all of your fingers and all sorts of aspects of how to play this instrument, how to create different sounds and textures, because that's where the excitement really comes from. So enjoy that, try those exercises, do some basic stuff first, like learn your basic scale. So right here I start on my left hand, I play the ding note, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. You're basically going from the lowest note to the highest note, which is usually away from your body on the opposite side of the instrument. And it's usually alternating hands, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Frequently, beginners sometimes will double up on hands. So instead of going left, right, they might do something like right, right, left, right. So instead of starting with the left, they play it with the right, and then they move their right hand like this. So there's two right hands in a row. But try to do it alternating, just as the initial exercise, just so you get your body and your muscles and your brain all coordinated so that you'll know how to do it in this very basic way first. And then if you want to experiment after you get really comfortable with that, then sure, if you want to try trying to play the scale with different strokes of the hand, then go for it. So like you could do it like this. So I just did right, right instead of left, right. There might be a necessity for that someday. So again, learn the basics first and then experiment with some things to explore and to see how else you could do it once you get those basics learned. Okay, so I was going to show you a little bit, another thing too about the ohm drum. If you already at home own a tongue drum, this is basically modeled after a tongue drum. So a lot of people have tongue drums. If you could play a tongue drum with your fingers like this, it's almost the exact same technique as playing a handpan. So if you are getting started with learning how to play a handpan, or if you don't have one yet and you're kind of exploring and maybe you have a tongue drum with you already, as long as you can play that tongue drum with your fingers, it's pretty much the exact same technique. You can see how that I'm slapping it here. And if I mute them, then it doesn't work. But if you slap it and come off, again, you can also use that the tip of your finger for a lighter feel. So there's different techniques that you can use on the tongues, but again, if you already have a tongue drum, or if you're experimenting with tongue drums, or if you buy an ohm drum, you can basically play it with the same technique on the top and the bottom. So that's always a plus. All right, I see one more comment over here. Throw my glasses on. It says, Dim leaf fall, LOL. Awesome. Great. All right, well, thanks again for checking in. That was the name of the person that commented earlier. All right, if you if you have any comments, if you have any questions about handpans, feel free to ask them. I do check in over here on my phone to see if the comments, if there's anybody with a question, and I'd be more than happy to answer them live here on YouTube right today. All right, so I'm going to move from this instrument. This is an ohm drum, the handpan that we make here at DII, and I'm going to show you an instrument that I was shipped to me by a customer who wanted me to tune it, and I just want to show you the difference, some of the crazy stuff I see here at DII. So this instrument is not something that I made. This is just a handpan that somebody sent to me to get it tuned. But I also think that this is a pretty good sample of something that might be out there where people are like looking online to buy handpans, and then they get one in the mail or whatever it is, and they are not always understanding why it's slightly different or why it sounds different than the one that might have been sold by somebody like us or some other maker out there. And so this one is obviously, to me, made by somebody who is a beginner, so I'm not sure who it's made by. There was no description on it that says who made it. I don't know where it was made, anything like that. But the essence of it is it just doesn't sound quite as good as a well-made handpan. So a lot of people have questions about handpans like this. They sometimes think, well, can you tune it and make it sound like that, one of them that you make? And unfortunately, not really. So just the way it was made, the way the hammer hit the metal when it was being fabricated, it all matters with the end result of how it sounds. So basically with an instrument like this, it has some of the properties that you want a handpan to have, like it has basically some degree of proper tuning. So it has kind of a scale, but there's harmonics that are supposed to be tuned to a regular handpan or traditionally made handpan. And there are some harmonics tuned on this instrument, but they're not consistent at all. So basically what they did is just tuned one harmonic per note, and that is going to make it more difficult to play, and it's going to make it a little bit less soothing to play. So when you buy a handpan, you really need to make sure that it's tuned well and that the maker is reputable. Otherwise you might end up with something like this, especially if it's really low cost online right now. So just be very careful out there. But even without all that being said, we were talking about just getting the technique together of how to play the handpan. And if you want to learn how to play the handpan on a simple like model like this that wasn't completely made correctly, perhaps by a beginner, I don't know who made this, you can still practice all of these techniques that I was just talking about, getting the touch and the feel of getting the notes to play. So there I was kind of doing the slap technique that I was talking about earlier. You could play it with the tips of your fingers. That sort of thing. You can play the ding note. It has a really not such a good ding note, but you can practice it. Like on this one, this is not a very good one for beginners because beginners would wonder why it isn't sounding good, and they wouldn't really be able to differentiate the difference between the handpan not sounding good versus their technique. So that's kind of why sometimes you do need to get a little bit of a better quality handpan to get a better sound out of the technique that you're creating or that you're practicing. So for instance, right here, it doesn't matter how good my technique is. If the drum wasn't made well or if it's out of tune, it's just never going to sound correct, and you're not going to make it sound like you hear on videos out there on YouTube or just like while I'm playing here in this class. So just be careful when you get your handpans. Make sure it's tuned well. Yes, you can practice on this instrument and you can create some songs. Right? I kind of created like a little song there. So I can get some melodies out of it. I can practice a little bit. But really, if you want to get that really meditative sound, or that sound that you might hear in a yoga class or on some recording somewhere, you're going to need to get one that's made better, or has a higher quality, or by somebody that is really been making them for quite some time. Like I just have this feeling that this was probably made by somebody who didn't really know what they were doing, and they were just kind of exploring how to make handpans within probably the first year of when they were exploring that. So. And also, when people send me something like this, just FYI, I can't always tune everything and make it sound miraculous. So I will probably be able to tune some of the harmonics on this to get them sounding a little bit better. But overall, this is probably just always going to sound a little bit clunky. It's never going to be like a top-notch handpan. It's just it'd be basically impossible to. You'd have to take it all apart and redo it. Even then, it might not even be possible to make it sound as good as a new one that was made properly. So anyway, just that was an FYI on basic handpans like this. I didn't make this one, but you can practice on something like this and kind of get your technique going and learn some little melodies and that sort of thing. But if you ever wanted to step up and really play something that makes it really sound beautiful and for recordings or for live performance, then you would definitely want to move on up to something else, something like one of our handpans here, like the Ohm or Luna Clarity. We also have stainless steel models. I also want to show you another thing back here. So this is a handpan that's tuned to the F-sharp Equinox scale. So the F-sharp Equinox scale sounds completely different from our traditional sunset scale, which is also called Celtic minor scale. Okay, so this has that sound, and this one sounds like this. So getting back to technique, when you're practicing as a beginner, it doesn't really matter what scale that you're practicing on. When you're getting your technique going, you just really want to get the best sound out of the notes as possible. So the same exercises would apply on this different scale than on the scale that I showed you earlier. It would be difficult sometimes maybe to play along with somebody, say you're taking an online course or playing along with somebody live. It won't match. It might sound really funky. It might have dissonance and that sort of thing. But if you're playing on your own and you're just trying to get started with a handpan, it doesn't really matter what the scale is. Just apply those techniques. So you could apply that 4 on a hand like we talked about earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. And as long as you're getting that nice pleasant tone out of the instrument, you're doing it right. So I'm doing kind of like the slap technique right now with my index finger. Now I'm going to switch to the tip of my finger. Kind of produces a mellower sound. You can do the same thing on the other notes on the side. So the slap. And then you can do the tip of your finger to kind of get a mellower sound. And you can run scales from low to high, so that with the slap technique. Tip of your fingers to make a mellower sound. So as long as you get those techniques going, you can pretty much play on any handpan. So get the techniques correct, practice those slowly, don't go too fast. If you get frustrated, just slow down, take long breaths, don't forget just breathe. We've got a little sign over there that says just breathe. So if you're struggling and you're like tapping the note and not getting that nice sustain out of the note, just try to relax. I use gravity a lot, so the hand kind of just falls with gravity. It's not like I'm really pushing it down with my muscles. Just enjoy. So relax, enjoy, breathe, and just do what you can to get these exercises going so that you can create that nice, beautiful sound that you're longing for. All right, with that, let's see. We didn't talk really about the handpan. Does anybody else have any questions out there? I don't see any questions coming in, and that's okay. It's a beautiful August day today. In fact, I'm going to be playing softball with my family at 2:30, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But as you take your handpan out into the universe, by the way, here's another quick tip for all of the beginners out there. Make sure you take care of your handpan. Make sure that it doesn't get wet. And if it does get wet, just make sure you wipe it off immediately. If you have a stainless handpan, make sure that you're wiping it down with stainless steel cleaner after you play it, or before maybe you put it into the case for a longer duration of time. It'd be really good for you to, especially if you're playing at the beach or in some kind of moist or humid environment, to maybe wipe it down after every single playing and before you put it away. Just that way, any kind of salt residue or any kind of acids or whatever in the air, on your fingers, on your hands, sweat, that sort of thing, keeps it off the instruments so that you don't have any problems with corrosion or rust or anything like that. So it's always good to take care of your handpans. On the powder-coated handpans like these, this is a glossy hand. We call this the Clarity, and we call this the Satin. These are powder-coated, and powder coating is kind of like a super-duper durable paint that's applied in an oven, so it's baked on. But like if you went to the beach or something like that and there was sand, you wouldn't want to wipe it off. Don't wipe the sand off, because that wiping motion of the sand is like sandpaper, and it could scratch it. It could scratch a stainless steel handpan as well. So make sure if it has any kind of sand or anything like that on it, just blow it off like that, or take a t-shirt or some kind of soft cloth and just kind of brush it off like this so that it's not scraping against the instrument. I don't suggest really using a brush. Sometimes brushes can be have like plastic on them, and it can scratch as well. So just use a soft cotton cloth or whatever. Just brush off the dust or dirt or whatever has gotten on your instrument, and then just make sure it's nice and clean before you put it away. And then the other thing too is make sure if you play it in the sun, it might go out of tune a little bit, but that's usually not an issue for long term. It's usually a shorter term problem where it just kind of goes out of tune because the metal becomes soft because it's warm, and it just changes the tuning a little bit. So when you take it out of the sun, put it back in the shade, after it normalizes the temperature, it usually goes back into tune and it's not a problem. So don't play it in the sun, play it mostly in the shade. Just be careful when you're out there in the universe playing the instruments. Make sure they stay clean and dry, and you should be a happy person. All right, if they ever go to tune, we do tuning service here at DII, so you can give us a call or send us an email or catch us online on Facebook, and just let us know that you need to get your instrument tuned, and we do that for individuals and that sort of thing. All right, if there are no more other questions, let me see. I think I see one other little comment here. Hello for Colorado. Thanks, David. This is great. Seppi, awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Seppi. All right. I think that's going to be it today. Like I said, I've got a softball game to go to with my family. So I hope you had a really wonderful day. I hope you learned something from today's class. You can always tune in later. So if you wanted to listen to it later, just tune in later. This is going to be saved on YouTube, and you can search for it. So thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to do my best to end this without looking too awkward. This is live. Daniel and Carrie are on vacation, so everyone say hi to Daniel and Carrie. They're out in Mexico somewhere, I think in the jungle. So they're having a good time down there in the tropical environment. All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time. All right, I'm going to play a little bit, but I don't think I can play and turn it off at the same time. Let's see how I can do this. So let's see.